Alright, so I don't have anything to show you today because I wanted to talk about something that isn't a book. I want to talk about a brilliant story that I recently experienced, a video game uh, by the name of Oxenfree. Oxenfree is awesome. I really don't know how to describe it because, well, I personally am not usually a fan of pure horror or the sort of teen angst drama storylines, both of which are sort of Oxenfree's whole deal. Um, but it does it so well that it makes me question whether such tropes and genres uh, aren't you know are not actually a problem for me. If maybe it's just I haven't encountered enough ones that appeal to me personally because I love Oxenfree. It's an amazing story, and at first it strikes me as not exactly in my wheelhouse, although it does include some time travel elements, which I'm always a sucker for, especially the twisty turny time loop shenanigans. Uh, the story of the game follows this girl Alex who is mourning the loss of her brother who died a few years ago, and she's trying to cope with her parents who got a divorce, her mother's remarried, and now she has a stepbrother uh, who is this cool guy named Jonas. Uh, and Jonas is he's pretty cool. He's all right. But pretty much the day they meet, they decide to go hang out with some of Alex's friends at this lonely, quiet Edward's Isle, uh, where they can drink and smoke, and one of them does drugs. Uh, your usual teenagers in a horror movie. Uh, but things really start to kick off when it is revealed that there are these weird radio signals on the island, uh, signals from places that don't exist. Um, and Alex's best friend, this goofball named Rin, he encourages them to tap into some of the signals with this old battered radio that they brought along for just such an occasion. Apparently, it's a whole thing. It's the thing to do over on Edwards Island is play with radio signals and see what happens. Uh, and throughout the island, there's a whole complicated system of radio waves and informative messages that are still slightly creepy, and what have you, just all over the place. Uh, and and as for our unfortunate teens, they're hanging out by this cave, and they start tapping into some of the weird signals, and boom, lights start flickering deeper inside the cave. And Alex and Jonas they go to check it out, while Rin stays behind and gets high, and the other two, a mean girl who turns out to be not so mean later on, and a girl who remains like kind of cool but sort of quiet and doesn't really do much. They stay on the beach. Um, so Alex and Jonas uh, venture into the cave alone and eventually tap into, well, it's sort of this big green triangle of shimmering energy spinning through the air, this cyclone of death that forms up and releases ghosts upon the island. I mean, these are some scary ass ghosts. There's this red-eyed wraith demon creature that they sort of form up into, and they've got the minds of children, effectively. Uh, they're fond of these games, these mind games, and they have temporal powers that are hard to understand. They can play with time and space, basically. The entire island goes bonkers. Everything starts falling apart. People black out, and it falls to Alex and, for the most part, Jonas, and sometimes Rin, to try and put everything back together. Um, Time loops start occurring. Events keep repeating, where Alex is the only one who really remembers, uh, until much later, right? That, I suspect, might have to do with the proximity to where the ghosts emerged from, right? Uh, Alex being the one who actually tapped into the signal and summoned the ghosts by accident. But Jonas, he catches on pretty quickly. Within like 2 or 3 loops, he starts to figure stuff out. And Rin, who was getting high outside of the cave, uh, he does start to catch on, but also sometimes gets possessed by ghosts and is generally unaware of some of the weirder stuff that happens. And then Nona, the quiet girl, she was on the beach and remains pretty much at the ghost's mercy, whereas Clarissa, the mean girl, is fully possessed by the ghosts, full on red eyes and teleporting powers, possessed. So she's like gone out, like full on a puppet of the ghosts. It's a fun story, actually. Well written, well acted. The voice cast being amazing. Um, the game centers on this kind of three-dimensional, but also kind of painted 2D atmosphere, where you're following the characters side-scrolling, and yet the characters have 3 dimensions. They can kind of move up and down and around, uh, as they will. It's an interesting design, but it's a game you really have to play to get the full enjoyment out of it. In which the controller will vibrate, the game will freeze and rewind itself and start over again from a different point. Um, there was one instance where, I wasn't too far into the game, when I'm not even sure if, like, my save file was corrupted, if it was like a glitch or something, or if it was some active evil genius by the developers. But the whole game restarted from the beginning. Um, and I don't know what happened there. Um, the, I chose different dialogue options that time around, and I almost got the vibe that Alex was aware that something had happened, but it was such an extreme mid-game restart that maybe she wasn't fully aware of it, or I might have been reading too much into it. The characters are where the game shines. I found Alex to be a compelling protagonist, flawed in all the right ways, and she's able to learn. She's able to grow, despite the fact that the player decides pretty much everything she says and does. There's still generally an arc in there, and you get to decide what kind of arc that is. Whether it's letting go of the past, or coming to accept it and move on, or looking out for your friends and family. It's sort of a choose your own message sort of experience. Uh, but I did walk away feeling inspired and intrigued, nevertheless. Uh, Alex's main relationship is with Jonas, learning to accept him as a brotherly figure, to treat him as sort of an equal. They're a good team. Jonas being smarter than he seems, though there are some pretty good digs made at his expense about him being not quite the sharpest tool in the shed. He winds up having a sort of feud with Rin, who definitely gets funniest lines in the game, though everyone's got something on that front. I'm still partial to Alex's "Take that, ball," which just makes me smile. Uh, there's all sorts of time loop nonsense that goes on. Uh, it kind of circles back around to the mean girl Clarissa, who dated Michael, Alex's dead brother, right? Uh, and that's sort of why Clarissa's a jerk in the first place. She was in love with Michael, and she's hurting now that he's gone, so she's lashing out at everyone around her. Um, Flashbacks start happening uh, as a result of the ghostly shenanigans, uh, in which Alex gets to see Michael again, and then also the nice, happy, not evil version of Clarissa. But here's the rub: you can actually change things in these flashbacks, deciding what to say and when to say it. Um, Spoiler alert! Just so you know, spoiler for the game, big one. You can actually bring Michael, Alex's brother, back from the dead by the end of it, having rewritten history so that he doesn't go on the swimming trip in which he drowns. Instead, he goes to the island with them. He lives and goes to the island and is there for everything. And Jonas just turns out to be a new friend of theirs, and everything's kind of all right. Only the ghosts are still ghosting, even then. Um, I've been calling them ghosts this entire time, but by the end of the game, they've come to be called the Sunken, which is fairly terrifying, I gotta say. They are the collected souls of the crew of the USS Kanaloa, I believe it's called, uh, which we learn was a submarine that got blown up in the early kind of World War era. I don't remember whether it was World War One or two, um, but the official report is that it was sunk by an enemy vessel, like a sort of attack. But in truth, it was a freak accident caused by friendly fire, which triggered an experimental radioactive and highly dangerous weaponry aboard the Kanaloa, and caused a sort of implosion, which then scattered the atoms and souls and all the other bits of the dead people into the ether, effectively, uh, and turned them into ghosts. Photos will be taken throughout the game, and more often than not, you'll see those collected souls formed up into the red-eyed demon form, just kind of looming right behind you, or looking at you from across the little plane or whatever. They're there's the impression that they're always there watching the main characters. Um, and they're amazing villains. Really creepy, just these laughing, powerful creatures trying to break into the mortal world. They talk with 100 voices in this static garbledygook. Is leave possible? We are the sunken. It's really good. Um, and they are near undefeatable thanks to their powers over time and space. When you finish the game, I suppose this is another spoiler. When you finish the game, it starts over from the beginning. Alex is aware of this, sort of. She mentions how things have already been said, how she's already been to certain places. It's a great little switcheroo that you have to play the game multiple times, repeating the big giant time loop, um, to discover all its secrets. Because in the next loop and in subsequent loops, you'll find things are different. You'll find uh, all sorts. To a certain extent, even the geography of the island changes. You'll have to be attentive to discover what I deem to be the canonical ending, at least the one that's most fun. It's really a wonderful game. I can't stress enough how great it really is. It's a little twisty turny, right? You're not always sure what to do, but it makes up for that with stellar writing, with characters I actually like and don't want to die, which is a first for most works of horror. I even liked Clarissa, the character who you're kind of supposed to be rooting against a little bit, who you're not supposed to like, really. But the villains are great, right? The creepy, fascinating, the sunken, right? I'd highly recommend Oxenfree, not just to gamers, but to anyone who would enjoy just a really great spooky story. Uh, yeah, that's about that. Like and subscribe for more random content like this. Uh, Else you'll be stuck in a time loop for the rest of eternity. Yep, that's true. I don't make the rules. Um, so yeah, you better do it. Um, all right, like like and subscribe. Yeah. Um, Bye.